Order. Question number 4, Andrew Bailey.
Mr Speaker, thank you. My question is to the Minister of Tertiary Education, Skills and Employment. What reports has he received on employment growth in New Zealand in the last year?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, very good reports. Last week the Household Labour Force Survey for the December quarter 2014 was released. It shows employment was up by 1.2% or 28,000 people in the December quarter. For the year of 2014, 80,000 more jobs were added to the New Zealand economy, and that's an increase of 3.5%. That growth continues the trend of recent years. Over the last 2 years, 146,000 extra new jobs have been added to the New Zealand economy. That is the strongest job growth over 2 years in a decade, Mr Speaker. And in fact, 180,000 more people are in work than we came in government in 2008, despite the global financial crisis. This government, Mr Speaker, is focused on creating opportunities for investment that grow jobs in the New Zealand economy.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Andrew Bailey.
What other progress in the labour market did the HLFS show?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, the survey showed a record high participation in the labour market of 69.7%. That's the highest since figures began in 1986. This means that unemployment rose slightly to 5.7% despite the strong job growth. It shows more people entering the workforce. It also showed broad-based job growth continuing in a range of regions and industries around the country. 22,300 more jobs in Auckland over the year, 17,400 in the Waikato, 15,800 in Christchurch, 15,600 in the Bay of Plenty, and 7,500 more in Northland. Other highlights included strong growth in wages, with hourly wages up 2.6% over the year, ahead of inflation at 8.8%, and a continuing improving story for Māori and Pacifica peoples, with 10,000 more Māori in employment over the year, and the unemployment rate for Pacifica people falling 2.5%.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Andrew Bailey.
How does New Zealand's unemployment rate compare to the OECD average?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, it's an interesting question the member raises, given that it was alluded to in the House yesterday. Our unemployment rate of 5.7% for quarter 4 is well below the OECD average of 7.2% and ranks us as 10th equal. I should note for the House that contrary to some claims made yesterday that New Zealand was number 1 in the OECD before the global financial crisis, 10 is actually exactly the same ranking held in the quarter prior to the global financial crisis commencing in 2008. That is a slightly strange thing, and also the same as when Labor left office. I'd also note that the same member who made this reference in the House yesterday described in a press release last week the situation that we're seeing in New Zealand as a jobless recovery, despite the strongest job growth over 2 years that New Zealand has seen in a decade. So I think that member might want to be a bit more careful with his facts.
Order. Order. Supplementary question. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Exactly how does job growth help the New Zealand people when he and his colleagues dished out approximately 70,000 foreign student work visas last year? And so who's the new work going to? New Zealanders or somebody else?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Didn't take long to bang that drum, Mr Speaker.
Order. Answer the question.
Mr Speaker, point of order.
Order. Order. Order.
Mr Speaker.
This is a point. Order. This is a point of order. I wish to hear it in silence.
Mr Speaker, seeing this is a new year, you are very loath to tolerate any questioner loading up their questions with such comment. And I think that to make sure this year starts off on the right vein, that he be stopped in his tracks right now.
Order. Order. And the member may have not heard, but I did immediately stop the Minister and tell him to answer the question. Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, the point I would make to the member is actually the international students coming to New Zealand create something like 30,000 extra jobs in the New Zealand economy on their own. No. And in fact, when we've tested that proposition of the member, we've found that actually there's more jobs created by having the international students in the New Zealand economy than by the work that they do themselves. So the international education story for New Zealand is a very positive story that creates about $2.85 billion of value in New Zealand on an annual basis.
No more questions.
Order. Question number 5, Dr. David Clark.
Mr. Speaker,